The battlefield was silent now, but the silence was heavy. Broken weapons, burned machines, and the smell of smoke filled the air. The war between humans and the alien race had been brutal. Soldiers were tired, wounded, and some were lost forever. But in one corner of the captured camp there was something different, something that made even the bravest men turn their eyes away. It was the alien girl. She sat on the cold ground, her hands chained, her body weak and wounded. Her skin was pale silver, shining faintly under the camplights, and her large eyes reflected fear and pain. She was not old enough to be a soldier. She was too young. Yet, no one dared to go near her. The soldiers whispered whenever they passed her cage. She is dangerous. She can kill with her mind. She is cursed. No one wanted to risk touching her. Even when she cried out for water, no one moved. Even when her head dropped from weakness, the guards only looked away. To them, she was not a girl. She was the enemy. Days passed like this. The alien girl grew weaker. She pressed her knees to her chest, shaking in the cold nights, too afraid to sleep deeply. The chains cut into her wrists, leaving dark marks. Hunger and pain filled her small body, but still, no one came close. Among the humans in that camp was a medic. He was not a fighter, not a commander, not a man who carried a weapon proudly. His duty was different. He healed. He had seen death many times, but his hands always reached out to save, not to destroy. One evening, as the medic moved through the camp, checking wounded soldiers, his eyes fell on her. At first, he only looked for a moment, the way others did. But then, he stopped. She was shivering. Her lips were dry, her breath uneven. Blood from an untreated wound stained the ground near her legs. She looked less like a monster and more like a child on the edge of death. The medic's heart tightened. He remembered the oath he had taken long ago: a healer must save lives, not choose which lives are worth saving. But saving her would be dangerous. That night, while most soldiers rested, the medic returned. He carried a small bottle of water. His hands shook as he crouched near the cage. The girl's eyes widened, glowing faintly in the dark. She thought it was another soldier coming to hurt her. But the medic spoke softly. "Drink." For a moment, she did not move. Fear held her still. Then, when she saw the water, her trembling hands reached out. The medic lifted the bottle carefully and let her drink. She drank desperately, as if it was her last chance. The medic's eyes studied her face. Yes, she was different. Yes, she was alien. But the pain in her eyes was the same pain he had seen in countless human patients. Pain knew no race. Suffering belonged to all. The next day, rumors began to spread in the camp. Some soldiers noticed that the alien prisoner looked a little stronger. Strange, she should be weaker by now. Maybe her kind can heal themselves. No one imagined a human was helping her. Not yet. The medic kept his actions secret. Every night, he returned with small things: clean cloth for her wounds, a piece of bread hidden in his pocket, a quiet word of comfort. The girl never spoke, but her eyes followed him. She no longer looked at the soldiers with fear. She looked at the medic with something different, something closer to hope. But hope was dangerous. One evening, another soldier walked near the cage while the medic was there. The soldier's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" The medic quickly stood, pretending he was only checking the locks. "Command asked me to make sure the prisoner doesn't die too quickly," he lied. The soldier laughed and walked away. The medic's heart pounded. That was close. As the days went on, the medic knew he was standing on a dangerous line. If anyone discovered what he was doing, he could be punished, maybe even executed for treason. Yet every time he thought about stopping, he remembered her face, the face of a dying child who had done nothing but be born on the wrong side of war. The alien girl began to change. She sat straighter. Her wounds started to heal. Her eyes, once filled with fear, now carried silent questions. "Why are you helping me? Why only you?" The medic never answered aloud, but in his heart, he knew the reason. Because no one else would. Because if he turned away, she would die in chains, forgotten and unloved. And deep inside, he feared something greater. If humans could not find compassion, even for an enemy child, then what kind of future was left for humanity itself? The camp carried on, unaware of the fragile bond growing in secret. But secrets never stay hidden forever. And soon, someone would notice. The days in the camp passed slowly. The war outside continued, but inside the human base, the soldiers had only one focus: survival. Every day, new wounded men were brought in, and every night, the medics worked under dim lights, trying to save whoever they could. Among all the noise and suffering, one secret grew quietly in the shadows. The alien girl was alive, because one man had chosen not to look away. The human medic, known by the others as Dr. Hale, tried to act normal during the day. He treated soldiers, wrote reports, and followed orders. But when darkness fell, he returned to the small cage at the far end of the camp, where the alien girl waited. Her silver eyes always lit up when she saw him. She did not smile, not yet, but there was a change in her face. She was no longer just waiting to die. Hale's hands trembled every time he unlocked the corner of the cage just enough to slip water or bread through. He kept his voice low. "Eat. Stay quiet." The girl obeyed. She was careful, silent, like someone who had learned to hide her pain. One night, while Hale was cleaning the wound on her arm, she whispered her first word. Her voice was rough, dry, almost broken. "Why?" Hale froze. He looked into her eyes. The word was simple, but the meaning behind it was heavy. She wanted to know why he was helping her when everyone else wanted her dead. For a long moment, Hale did not answer. Then he whispered back, "Because you are alive. That is enough." The girl looked at him, confused, but she did not speak again. Still, that single moment was powerful. For the first time, she knew that at least one human did not see her as a monster. But Hale's choice was becoming dangerous. Other soldiers started to notice things. Strange, isn't it? That alien should be dead by now. Maybe Command wants her alive for questioning. Or maybe someone is helping her. The whispers spread. Every time Hale walked past groups of soldiers, he could feel their eyes on him. He kept his face calm, but inside, fear gnawed at him. One evening, a commander called him into the main tent. Maps and war reports were spread across the table. The commander's voice was sharp. "Dr. Hale, I've heard strange things. The alien prisoner is still alive. Too alive. Do you know anything about it?" Hale forced his voice steady. "My orders were to keep prisoners alive until interrogation. I simply made sure she didn't die of infection." The commander's cold eyes studied him. "Good. Because if I find out someone is soft on the enemy, they won't live long." Hale nodded, but when he left the tent, his chest felt heavy. He was walking a thin line between duty and compassion. That night, when he returned to the cage, the alien girl was waiting. She reached out weakly, her thin fingers brushing the air, as if asking for something more than food or water. Hale sat down beside the bars. For a moment, there was only silence between them. Then, slowly, the girl whispered again, her words broken but clear enough to understand. "My name. Lyra." Hale looked at her with surprise. She had given him her name. In a world where she had been treated as nothing, as just the alien, she trusted him enough to share her true identity. "Lyra," he repeated softly. She nodded, and for the first time, a faint, fragile smile touched her lips. But outside the cage, danger was growing. A soldier named Briggs, rough and suspicious, had seen Hale walking near the prisoner too often. He started following him, watching his movements. Briggs told others, "The doc is hiding something. I'll find out what." One night, as Hale slipped a small piece of bread to Lyra, Briggs stepped out of the shadows. "Caught you," he sneered. Hale's heart stopped. His mind raced. If Briggs reported this, everything would end, Lyra would be executed, and Hale himself would be branded a traitor. Thinking quickly, Hale stood tall. The commander gave orders. "She is to stay alive for questioning." "I'm following orders, Briggs. You should be careful before you accuse me." Briggs narrowed his eyes, uncertain. Finally, he spat on the ground and walked away, but his suspicion did not fade. Hale knew he had only bought himself a little time. That night, as he sat by the cage, Lyra looked at him with worried eyes. She did not understand the human words Briggs had spoken, but she understood danger. Hale sighed. He whispered, almost to himself, "If they find out, we're both finished." For the first time, Lyra reached through the bars and touched his hand. Her skin was cool, her touch light. No words were spoken, but in that moment, Hale felt something powerful. A connection. A bond. The choice before him grew clearer each day. He could stop now, step back, and let Lyra's fate be what the others wanted. Or he could continue, risk everything, and protect her until the end. Hale closed his eyes and made his decision. He would not abandon her. But deep inside, he knew this decision would change everything, not just for him, not just for Lyra, but for the entire camp. And maybe, for the future of humans and her people. The camp carried on as always. Soldiers trained, commanders shouted orders, and the war outside never seemed to end. But behind all of this, in the far corner of the base, a secret bond was growing in silence. Dr. Hale continued to visit the alien girl, Lyra. Each night, when most men were asleep or busy with their duties, he slipped away quietly to her cage. His steps were careful, his heart always heavy with fear that someone would follow. But still, he went. Lyra was changing. Her body, once weak and trembling, was slowly gaining strength. The wounds on her arms and legs were healing, thanks to the hidden bandages and medicine Hale provided. She ate the food he smuggled in, small pieces of bread or dried meat, and her hollow cheeks began to fill again. But more than her body, her spirit was changing. When Hale first found her, her eyes were full of fear, fear of humans, fear of pain, fear of death. Now, when he came close, she looked at him differently. There was still fear, but there was also something new, trust. One night, as he handed her a piece of bread, Lyra whispered something. Her words were slow, broken, but clear enough. "You, good." Hale paused. For a man who had seen nothing but hatred and blood between species, those two words struck deep inside his heart. "I'm just a medic," he replied quietly. "I help those who need it." Lyra tilted her head, her silver eyes reflecting the dim camp lights. She seemed to study him as if trying to understand why a human would care. Hale often wondered the same. He knew he was risking everything, his career, his freedom, even his life. But each time he looked at Lyra, he felt that walking away would be a greater sin than being caught. Days turned into weeks. And with time, the bond between them grew stronger. Hale began teaching her simple words. He would point to things and speak slowly. Water. Food. Friend. Lyra listened carefully. Her tongue struggled with human sounds, but she tried. She wanted to learn. Every word she spoke was like a small step toward understanding, toward connection. But the danger around them never faded. Soldier Briggs was still suspicious. He often lingered near the cage, pretending to guard, but his eyes always followed Hale. Other soldiers too began to gossip more openly. The alien still lives. She should be dead already. Why is command keeping her? Hale heard these whispers, and they filled him with dread. One evening, while he was changing the bandage on Lyra's wrist, footsteps echoed behind him. He turned quickly, hiding the cloth in his hands. It was another medic, a young man named Carter. Carter frowned. "What are you doing here, Hale?" Hale forced a calm voice. "Checking her condition. Command doesn't want her dead yet." Carter narrowed his eyes but said nothing. He simply walked away. Still, Hale knew the risk was growing. Sooner or later, someone would discover the truth. That night, Lyra spoke again. Her words were broken, but filled with meaning. "Why hide?" Hale sighed. "Because if they know, they'll kill you. And they might kill me too." Lyra lowered her head. For a moment, she looked sad. Then she whispered one more word, soft as the wind. "Sorry." Hale felt his chest tighten. "Don't be sorry," he said gently. "None of this is your fault." The silence between them grew heavy. Yet, in that silence, something powerful was forming, something Hale himself could hardly believe. An invisible bond, stronger than the chains that held her. But outside the cage, things were changing fast. The war was reaching closer. Enemy raids were happening more often. Explosions could be heard in the distance almost every night. The camp was becoming restless, nervous, ready to break. and rumors about the alien girl grew louder. Some soldiers demanded her execution. Others believed she was cursed and brought bad luck to the camp. Hale listened silently, his mind racing. If the commanders gave the order to kill her, he would have no time to think, no time to act. One night, after a long silence, Lyra leaned closer to the bars of her cage. Her voice was soft but strong. "You risk all." Hale met her eyes. "Yes." "Why?" she asked again. Hale swallowed hard. The truth was simple but dangerous. "Because I can't let an innocent die. Not while I can stop it." Lyra's eyes softened, filled with something Hale could not fully read. Gratitude. Hope. Maybe even something deeper. That night, as Hale walked back to his tent, he realized the truth. He was no longer just helping a prisoner. He was protecting her. He was standing against the silent cruelty of everyone around him. And deep inside, he knew one thing. This bond, this hidden connection between a human medic and an alien girl, was no longer just a secret. It was becoming a promise. A promise that would soon test them both, because danger was closing in. The war outside the camp grew louder with each passing day. Explosions thundered in the distance, shaking the ground at night. The soldiers in the human camp were tense, restless, and quick to anger. Food was running low, supplies were stretched thin, and fear of another attack haunted everyone. In the middle of all this chaos, the alien girl, Lyra, remained locked in her cage. But unlike before, she was no longer weak and near death. Her wounds had healed, her strength had returned, and her eyes now carried a quiet light of life. This change did not go unnoticed. One evening, two soldiers stood near the cage, whispering, "Look at her. She was dying weeks ago." "Yeah, and now she looks fine. Too fine. Something's not right." Their voices carried suspicion, and suspicion in a military camp spread faster than fire. Dr. Hale knew it. He could feel the eyes of the camp watching him more closely now. Every step he took, every time he walked near the prisoner, he felt the weight of suspicion pressing down on him. But still, he continued. Every night, he brought food or water, sometimes just words of comfort. Lyra had become more than a secret patient. She was his responsibility. And more than that, she was his friend. One night, as Hale handed her a piece of bread, Lyra spoke softly. "Danger, close." Hale frowned. "You feel it too?" She nodded. Her kind, though weak in human chains, had instincts humans did not understand. And she knew eyes were watching. That same night, Soldier Briggs appeared again. His face was twisted with suspicion. He walked close to Hale as he left the cage. "You care too much about that alien, Doc," Briggs said in a low, sharp voice. Hale forced a calm smile. "I'm following orders. Command wants her alive." Briggs leaned closer, his eyes hard. "Don't lie to me. I've seen the way you look at her. You're feeding her, healing her. You're a traitor." Hale's heart pounded. For a moment, he imagined drawing a scalpel, silencing Briggs forever. But that wasn't who he was. He was a healer, not a killer. He kept his voice steady. "If you're so sure, report me. But when command asks why you wasted time on rumors instead of guarding the camp, don't expect mercy." Briggs hesitated. He spat on the ground, his eyes filled with hatred. "You'll slip up, document. And when you do, I'll be there." Hale walked away, his back stiff, but inside, he was shaking. The next day, things grew worse. The commander called Hale to the main tent again. "The alien looks stronger. Explain." Hale forced himself to remain calm. "Her species heals faster than ours. Even without help, she would recover." The commander studied him for a long moment, then finally nodded. "Perhaps. But if I find out anyone is giving her more than basic care, they'll answer to me directly." Hale bowed his head. "Understood." When he returned to Lyra that night, his face was pale. She noticed instantly. Her silver eyes searched his. "Problem?" she asked softly, using one of the words he had taught her. Hale sighed. "They're watching us. If they discover the truth, we're finished." Lyra's small hands gripped the bars of her cage. For the first time, There was fire in her voice. "No, you, safe." Her words surprised him. She was trying to protect him, even though she was the prisoner, the one in chains. Hale smiled faintly, shaking his head. "It's my job to keep you safe, Lyra. Not the other way around." But deep inside, he wondered if maybe they would end up protecting each other. Days passed, and the tension grew heavier. Briggs kept watching. Carter, the young medic, looked at Hale with suspicion every time they crossed paths. And the commander's patience was wearing thin. One night, as Hale checked Lyra's wounds, footsteps came suddenly from behind. This time, it wasn't Briggs. It wasn't Carter. It was the commander himself. Hale froze. The commander's sharp eyes fell directly on the scene, Hale kneeling by the cage, Lyra's hand resting lightly on his wrist as he bandaged her arm. The silence that followed was heavy, crushing. Finally, the commander's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Dr. Hale, what exactly are you doing?" Hale's mind raced. His throat felt dry. If he lied poorly, both he and Lyra would be finished. If he told the truth, it would be the end. Lyra quickly pulled her hand back, lowering her head like a frightened prisoner. Hale stood slowly, hiding the bandage behind his back. His heart hammered in his chest. "Sir," he said carefully, "I was ensuring the prisoner does not die. You gave me that order yourself." The commander narrowed his eyes. "Perhaps. But you look more involved than simple duty." For a moment, it felt as if the entire camp was holding its breath. Then, slowly, the commander turned away. "Keep her alive. Nothing more. Do you understand me, Hale?" "Yes, sir," Hale replied, his voice steady though his legs trembled. The commander left, but Hale knew the truth. That was not the end. Suspicion had already touched the highest level. The secret bond he shared with Lyra was hanging by a thread. And if that thread broke, the consequences would be deadly. The camp was restless that night. The air was heavy, filled with the smell of smoke and the sound of distant gunfire. Everyone knew the enemy was close. Commanders shouted orders, soldiers rushed to prepare defenses, and fear moved like a shadow through the camp. Dr. Hale felt it in his bones, something terrible was coming. He finished bandaging a soldier's arm when a thunderous explosion shook the ground. The camp lights flickered. Shouts echoed in the darkness. The enemy was attacking. Chaos broke out instantly. Alarms blared, soldiers ran to their positions, and gunfire roared through the night. Hale's first instinct was to rush to the wounded, but his eyes turned toward the far corner of the camp, toward Lyra's cage. If the camp fell, if the enemy stormed through, Lyra would be killed, by humans or by her own people who thought she was already lost. And if the humans held, the commander would likely order her execution to prevent her rescue. Either way, she was trapped. Hale's heart pounded as he made his choice. Tonight was the only chance. If he wanted to save her, it had to be now. Through smoke and shouting, Hale pushed his way across the camp. Soldiers barely noticed him, everyone was too busy fighting, loading weapons, or carrying the injured. Explosions lit up the night sky as he reached her cage. Lyra was crouched inside, eyes wide with fear as the ground shook. When she saw Hale, her lips moved in a single word. "Run." Hale knelt quickly, fumbling with the lock. His hands shook, but his mind was clear. "Yes. We're leaving." The lock finally snapped open. Hale pulled the cage door wide. "Come, Lyra. Stay close to me." For a moment, she hesitated. She had spent so long in chains that freedom felt like a dream. But when another explosion ripped through the camp, she leapt forward, grabbing his arm. Together, they ran. The camp was a storm of fire and chaos. Soldiers shouted orders, bullets tore through the night, and smoke blinded their path. Hale guided her through the confusion, keeping low, moving from shadow to shadow. But freedom would not come easily. "Stop them," a voice roared. "Briggs." Through the smoke, Briggs appeared, rifle in hand, his eyes blazing with rage. He had been waiting for this moment. "I knew it. You're helping the alien." Hale pulled Lyra behind him. "Briggs, listen to me. She's just a child. She's not a soldier. Don't lie to me." Briggs shouted, raising his rifle. "You're a traitor, Hale. Both of you will die right here. Hale's heart pounded. He had no weapon, nothing but his body. But before Briggs could fire, an explosion tore through a nearby storage shed. The blast threw them all to the ground. Hale pulled Lyra up, dragging her into the smoke. Briggs shouted curses behind them, but the chaos swallowed his voice. They ran through the burning camp, slipping past soldiers who were too busy fighting the enemy to notice. Hale's lungs burned, his legs ached, but he never let go of Lyra's hand. At the edge of the camp, a wall of fire blocked their path. Hale looked around desperately. Then he saw it, a gap in the fence where the blast had torn the wires apart. "This way," he shouted. Lyra followed, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dark. They slipped through the gap just as gunfire cracked behind them. Bullets struck the ground near their feet, but they kept running, vanishing into the smoke and night. For the first time in weeks, Lyra was outside the cage, breathing free air. But freedom was dangerous. The forest ahead was dark, filled with the sounds of war, and behind them, the camp was burning. They stopped for a moment among the trees, both gasping for breath. Hale looked at Lyra. Her face was covered in dirt, her hair tangled, but her eyes shone with life. "We're not safe yet," he said. "We have to keep moving." Lyra nodded. She was scared, but she was not weak anymore. Behind them, the camp roared with battle. Shouts of soldiers and the clash of weapons echoed through the night. Somewhere in that chaos, Briggs was hunting them. And the commander would soon know the truth. Hale felt the weight of his choice pressing down on him. He had betrayed his people. He had risked everything. But as he looked at Lyra, standing free under the open sky, he knew he would do it all again. For the first time, he saw her not as a prisoner, not as an alien, but simply as a life worth saving. And though danger still surrounded them, though the war still raged on, one thought filled Hale's mind as they disappeared into the dark forest. They had escaped, but the real test was only beginning. The night was dark, the forest deep and endless. Dr. Hale and Lyra ran until their legs burned and their lungs felt like fire. Behind them, the sound of war slowly faded, replaced by the quiet rustle of leaves and the distant cries of night creatures. For the first time, they stopped. Lyra leaned against a tree, her chest rising and falling quickly. Her silver eyes looked up at the stars above. She had not seen the open sky in weeks. Chains had kept her prisoner, walls had blocked her view, but now she was free. Hale stood nearby, listening carefully for any sound of pursuit. He knew the soldiers would come. The commander would not forgive this betrayal. Briggs especially would hunt them like prey. But for now, they had a moment of peace. Lyra looked at him, her voice soft. "Safe." Hale shook his head. "Not yet. But safer than before." They moved deeper into the forest. Every branch snapped, every shadow felt like danger waiting to strike. Hale's mind raced. He had no clear plan, no map, no supplies beyond the few things he carried as a medic. But he had made his choice. He would not let her die. Hours passed. At last, they found a ruined structure hidden in the woods, an old stone building, half broken, maybe from a battle long ago. It offered shelter from the wind and a place to rest. Inside, Hale helped Lyra sit down. He checked her wounds, though most were healing well. She watched him quietly, her eyes filled with something new, something close to trust, maybe even something deeper. "Why?" she asked again, her favorite question. Hale smiled faintly. "Because you deserve to live. War doesn't change that." She tilted her head. "Others hate me, fear me." "Because they don't see you," Hale replied. "They see only an enemy. But I see more. I see a girl who is brave enough to survive, even in chains." For a moment, there was silence. Then Lyra reached forward and touched his hand. Her fingers were gentle, her eyes shining in the dim light. It was not just gratitude anymore. It was a connection between two lives that should have never met, yet had. But their moment did not last long. Voices echoed in the forest. Human soldiers. Hale's body tensed. He peeked through a broken wall and saw flashlights moving among the trees. They were searching. The commander had kept his word. Lyra's eyes widened. "They come." "Yes," Hale whispered. His mind raced. He could not fight them. He had no weapon. But running again might not work either. He looked at Lyra. Listen to me. If they find us, stay behind me. No matter what happens. The lights drew closer. The sound of boots on dry leaves grew louder. And then, Briggs' voice cut through the night. Dr. Hale. Come out. You can't run forever. Hale felt his blood run cold. Briggs. Of course it would be him. Lyra's hands trembled, but she did not back away. For the first time, she stood tall, as if refusing to be a prisoner again. The soldiers appeared in the doorway, rifles aimed. Briggs stepped forward, his face twisted with triumph. I told them. I told everyone you were a traitor. And now, you'll die with your little monster. Hale stood in front of Lyra, his arms outstretched. She's not a monster. She's a child. She never fought, never hurt anyone. If you kill her, you're no better than the monsters you claim to fight. Briggs sneered. Save your speeches. Orders are orders. The other soldiers hesitated. Some lowered their weapons slightly. Hale's words struck something inside them. They had all seen the prisoner. They had seen her small, weak body, her innocent eyes. Was she really the great threat they were told? Briggs growled. What are you waiting for? Shoot. But the soldiers didn't move. Their eyes flickered between Hale, Lyra, and Briggs. The silence was heavier than any bullet. Finally, one soldier muttered, She's just a kid. Briggs spun on him, furious. Cowards. All of you. He raised his own rifle, aiming at Lyra. Time slowed. Hale moved instantly, stepping in front of Lyra. If you want her, you'll have to shoot me first. Briggs' finger tightened on the trigger. For a heartbeat, the night held its breath. Then, another voice cut through the tension, the commander's. Enough. Everyone froze. The commander stepped forward, his face grim. He looked at Lyra, then at Hale, then at the soldiers. His voice was cold but steady. The war has made us blind. We forget what we fight for. If we kill children in chains, what honor do we have left? Briggs stared in shock. Sir, she's the enemy. Silence, the commander snapped. His eyes returned to Hale. You defied orders. You risked everything. But maybe, you reminded us of something important. The commander turned to the soldiers. Stand down. Slowly, the rifles lowered. Briggs cursed under his breath but did not fire. He knew even he could not go against the commander. Hale exhaled, his body shaking with relief. Lyra clutched his arm tightly, her silver eyes filled with tears. For the first time, she was safe, not because of chains, but because someone had chosen to see her as more than an enemy. That night, the story of Dr. Hale spread quietly through the camp. Some called him a fool. Others called him a traitor. But many whispered a different word, hero. And though the war raged on, one truth had been born in the middle of fire and blood. One human medic dared to save an alien girl when no one else would. And that choice changed everything.